He caught me singing in his master bedroom barefoot mid-spin, a burgundy dress, flaring where a uniform should have been a spoon in my hand, like a microphone I had no right to hold. He was a billionaire. I was the maid. If your boss walked in at that exact second, would you freeze, lie, run, or keep singing because your chest finally remembered it had a voice? I'll rewind, but not too far, because everything before that moment felt like prelude, like the small drum before the band arrives. My name is Nyla 24 on paper, but tired in ways that don't count birthday candles, a housekeeper in a mansion where the silence was expensive and proud of it. The place belonged to Adrian Vale, the youngest tech billionaire in the country. Brilliant regular hours regulated face, a man who could make a room colder by entering it quietly. His fiancée Sienna lived there too. Runway beautiful temper, like a whip cracked over velvet, a woman who could say please to a camera and useless to your face a beat later. Do you think that's fair, that some people get to cash in kindness on stage and spend cruelty at home like it's store credit? My mornings belonged to clocks and lists. Up before the sun made up its mind, a cold shower in the servants' quarters that worked when it felt generous, hair pulled into a low bun that said I know my place uniform, black and obedient. By 6:30, the kitchen smelled like coffee and warm bread. By 7, I'd polished brass nobody touched. By 8, I'd been told to hurry and to be invisible in the same breath. I kept a photo under my pillow, my mother outside her kiosk scarf, tied neat because her hands were like that, steady, even when life wasn't. Just one more day, I whispered to the dark, every night, like a bargain I kept, because rent doesn't negotiate. If it were you, would you stay for the paycheck, or gamble on freedom with nothing but hope in your pocket? Sienna liked games that felt like tests she'd already decided I would fail. Nyla she'd call from the landing like my name was lint on her dress. This smoothie is too cold unless you want to wear it. She'd leave stilettos on the rug so I'd shine them to her standard, then scold me because standards were always shifting. One morning I climbed a ladder to dust the chandelier and caught my reflection in the crystal, tired eyes, lips pressed thin shoulders like question marks. Who are you, I thought, and who taught you to be this small? You ever ask yourself that in a job that shrinks you for sport? She had a trip to Johannesburg cameras, waiting a theater seat, shaped like her ego, and she was in command mode. Don't fold silk like towels, she said, and stay out of the master bedroom. That space isn't for people like you. Adrian stood by the window with the blue glow of a screen on his cheeks and said nothing, which sometimes felt worse than the sharp words, because silence can be a verdict when it comes from the person with the keys. The car carried her away, mid-morning wheels on marble like a drum roll for quiet perfume cloud trailing. And then the house did something rare. It exhaled. I stood in the hallway, with a mop like a dance partner I didn't respect, and listened to the hush. No heels, no orders, just the soft hum of the refrigerator and sun spilling through glass like it trusted me. I slipped into the kitchen and turned on the radio, a high-life track rolling over the tile like warm butter. My body answered first, before my careful brain could kill the moment. A slow sway, a smile I hadn't asked permission for. A thought surprised me, bold as a dare. Why am I still in this uniform? My room was a narrow box by the laundry, with a cracked mirror that told the truth too directly. But at the bottom of my suitcase I kept a dress I bought by cutting little corners off my life for months. Burgundy soft sleeves, the color a main character wears when she decides it's time. I pulled it on. Lip gloss. Breath. I didn't know I'd been holding. The mirror didn't flatter, it confessed. I looked like a person, not a job title. Back in the kitchen, I let the melody lift me barefoot on cool tile hips, keeping time like they remembered something better, spoon a microphone because we make art out of whatever says yes to our hands. And then I sang. Low at first, a safe hum, then fuller warm a note that threaded itself down the hallway like sunlight sneaking under doors. I sang the lullaby my mother loved, a little run that made me laugh, and the house finally heard a person. You ever taste your own voice after starving it too long? It's sweet, it's dangerous, it's necessary. This is where a different story would punish me. The front door opened. I didn't hear it over the music. Adrian stood at the base of the stairs, listening, following the sound, one careful step at a time, like he was approaching a memory that might spook. I spun near the cracked open door of the master bedroom, the dress flaring out, and saw him. I froze, spoon midair. His hand lifted not to scold, but to calm. Don't stop, he said, quiet, odd, like the words might break if he pushed them. I should have laughed or apologized harder, or vanished into the floor, but he stepped forward, with that listening still on his face, and said, You sing beautifully, and you move like the music knows your name. Who talks like that? I thought it was a trick. Yet he didn't ask for silence, he asked for one more line. So I sang the last verse, a simple, honest line that hovered between us like a secret, deciding whether to land. He stood very still, like someone had opened a window inside his chest. And then the spell broke, because spells do, and I reached to lower the volume. I'll get back to work, I said. He nodded. Thank you, Nyla. My name, careful in his mouth, changed the temperature of the room. The next morning, the uniform felt tighter, like it had learned I had options. I brought coffee to his study. Thank you, Nyla, he said again, eyes resting on me, a second longer than coffee requires. About yesterday, he added. If music lives in, you don't bury it for this house. I said I was sorry. He said he wasn't asking me to be. Later, he showed up with 2 mugs and said, You looked like you needed a break. Our fingers touched when I took it, and neither of us flinched like the roof had fallen in. We sat on the bench at the stairs, a place I had polished 100 times and never dared to rest. You don't talk much, I said. Neither do you, he answered. Talking never helped me, I told him. Singing did. He nodded. I code when I can't speak. We smiled at the strange kinship. Sound and syntax, 2 different ways of saying the same thing. I'm still here. 3 days of that quiet new rhythm, and then the storm came back in heels. Sienna blew in like sirens. Where's my bag? Who moved my Fendi? Why do I smell lavender? Oil for the shelves, I said. I didn't ask for creativity, she snapped. I asked for clean. On the guest laundry table, she found my folded burgundy dress. She lifted it like evidence. You wore this, she said, around my fiancé. If your dignity had to squeeze through a door, your paycheck barely fits, how would you answer? It was my off day you were away, I said. She stepped close, smile gone sharp. Do you think a village dress makes you someone? Footsteps on the stairs. Adrian. Sienna didn't lower her voice. Your helper has gotten too comfortable. He looked at me, not the dress. Are you okay? He asked. My hands were shaking, and I said yes, because sometimes yes is the only word that survives. In my office, he told her with a calm that scared people. The study door closed, but old houses have good memories. They carry sound. You're defending her now, she said. I'm defending dignity, he replied. She sang in this house in your room, she threw back. She works here, he said. She belongs here. She laughed, brittle as thin glass. Since when do you care about maids? Since I noticed people who treat them like nothing often have nothing inside. Yeah, that happened. She stormed into the hall, spun on me hand raised. A stronger hand caught her wrist midair. Don't, Adrian said, voice soft enough to shake a frame on the wall. She ripped free, cheeks burning. You're choosing her over me. I'm choosing what's right. He turned to me, and his voice did something I hadn't heard from rich men in houses like this. Please. You've done enough today. Please rest. Pattern interrupt. The ground moved. In one sentence, the house changed owners not on paper, but in spirit. Rain stitched along the eaves that evening, and I sat on the back bench with the dress folded like a memory I could touch. Adrian found me there. Do you mind, he asked. I told him he could sit. He asked how long I'd worked here. 8 months, I said before, that a restaurant where the floor knew me better than customers did. Before that, teacher's college. I passed the entrance exam, then my mom got sick, then the roof leaked, then life took what was left like a greedy landlord. Your father, he asked. Never met him. He nodded. I lost my parents at 16, slept on couches, built code like scaffolding until it held me up. People think money erases it, only muffles. I studied his face and said, You don't look like someone who's been hurt. He answered, That's the armor. Stone keeps questions away. I made a small joke that wasn't a joke. I became air. Invisible keeps anger away. He turned to me and said the sort of sentence you try not to need, but do. You're not invisible, Nyla. Days found a softer tempo. I sang while I cleaned. Never loud, never careless, just enough for the house to remember. It was a place where people lived. Sometimes he paused at a doorway and listened without stealing the moment. Sometimes he asked for one more chorus and said thank you, like I had fixed a bug in the code of his day. One afternoon, he asked almost shy, Will you sing at dinner? Just us. A date, I teased. A meal, he corrected, smiling, between two people who don't have to pretend. That night I simmered stew that tasted like home and set a single candle because light should do one job well. He came without a suit. We talked traffic markets and the songs that saved us at different ages. When I finished a melody by the open balcony, the wind carried the last note into the hibiscus and delivered it back like a letter signed yes. Stick around, because what happened next will blow your mind. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Not a ring, he said, reading the math in my eyes. Inside lay a slender silver bracelet. A promise, he said. A promise of what I asked, voice steady but not by much. That this house will never silence you again, that your music belongs here, that you belong here however you choose. I held out my wrist. He fastened it slowly like a vow made without spectators. Tell me straight. Would you trust that kind of promise, or would you call it a sweet story with an expiration date? A week later, he said there was a foundation gala. The board cared about the kind of room that eats a person if they show up as themselves. I'd like you there with me, he said, as my guest. My breath paused. Your guest, I repeated, because repetition makes fragile things stronger. My guest, he said, with the steady certainty of someone who has practiced truth and finally likes the sound. They'll talk, I warned. They already do, he said. Let them hear something true for once. The hotel ballroom glittered like somebody hung 1,000 small suns from the ceiling. Men in dark suits that cost a semester of college, women in gowns that told stories about money, cameras blinking like impatient eyes. When the elevator doors opened and I stepped out in a simple twilight-colored dress, hair gathered soft, the silver bracelet catching the light and throwing it back. Conversations bent toward us. Adrian offered his arm without flinching. "Ready?" he asked. "With you," I said. He introduced me the same way every time, not staff, not an accessory, not a careful euphemism. "This is Nyla," he said, and something in how he said my name placed me above category. Some people smiled for real, for the performance, some didn't bother. A board member's wife with a diamond collar sang "Adrian Darling," and then let her eyes try to do the cruel math. He cut in gently. "And you must be Nyla, my guest." Her mouth made a polite little circle. She drifted away to spread the word like a verdict. My hand tightened on his sleeve a fraction. He covered it. "I'm here," he murmured. "I know," I said. The speeches rose and fell, money congratulated itself between courses, and a string quartet lifted a melody that knew how to behave. That's when the room tilted. Sienna arrived late, glittering like a grudge perfume and flash. She looked across the space at the two of us, smiled a smile that couldn't afford sincerity, and let herself be absorbed by the wealthy and willing. I exhaled. "She saw," I said. She already knew, Adrian answered. "Tonight just learned the shape." "Are you okay?" I asked him. He looked at me, really looked. "I'm where I want to be." We danced once, slow and careful, a private language inside a public paragraph. He wasn't graceful, but he was present, and presence is the opposite of cold. I wasn't performing, I was at home inside a music that had been following me since I was small. When the song ended, the room clapped for the band, but he didn't drop my hand. "Let's get some air," he whispered. The terrace garden held its own small night string lights draped across branches, leaves whispering to the soft wind, the city below glittering like careful fires. We walked a hibiscus path, and it felt like stepping back onto the mansion's back patio, same hush, same promise. "Do you remember," he asked, "the day I heard you sing?" The room felt different. I felt different. "I remember how you listened," I said. "That's what I've been learning to do," he replied. "To listen." He stopped beneath a line of golden bulbs and turned to me. His hand went to his jacket. Hope and fear arrived like cousins who fight at weddings. "Nyla," he said. Voice steady, hands. "Not quite before all this. I built walls and called them houses. Then you sang, and I learned a house becomes a home when it knows a voice. Your voice." He opened a small velvet box. The ring didn't shout, it spoke. Simple, bright, certain. "I don't know everything the future asks," he continued, "but I know this. I want to build it with you in rooms where music is welcome, where you never have to be quiet to be safe. Will you marry me?" Time leaned in. I thought of cold showers and too tight uniforms and stilettos like broken wings of a spoon, as a microphone, of a man in a doorway who chose to listen instead of command. I didn't speak at first. I sang. Just a thread of sound, the melody that lives under all my words. My yes wasn't a word, it was a note. He laughed softly, the sound of a wall learning how to be a window. "Is that a yes?" he asked. I nodded, tears bright and stubborn. "Yes." He slid the ring on my finger, and it fit like the last line of a song. He pulled me close, not rushed, not hungry, simply sure, and we swayed beneath warm bulbs and a generous sky. We walked through this ballroom later, fingers laced, not caring who counted or gossiped or measured. Some faces softened, some hardened. None of it touched the little circle we carried around us, the one that smelled like hibiscus and held a single word sung like a vow. The ride home was quiet in the clean way. At the mansion, the door opened on a house that felt different, because we were. We went to the garden where it began, the back bench, the low roofline, the night that once wrapped us like a secret. I slipped off my shoes, toes remembering the cool stone. The ring caught a scrap of moonlight and winked. "Sing for me," he asked. I didn't need the radio. I hummed first, then words the song I used to sing alone. He moved with me, offbeat and earnest, and together we drew a slow circle in the dark. The house listened. The old silence had no appetite left. "Do you think that's fair, that a maid can become a fiancée in the same house where she was told not to touch the door? Or do you think power makes consent complicated, that maybe I should have walked away to keep the line clean? If it were you, what would you have done?" I know what I did. I checked in with the part of me that learned to be air, and she said, "I'm tired." I asked the voice I starved, and it said, "I'm ready." And I looked at a man who used to armor himself in stone and saw he had learned presence, which is the real opposite of cold. That's the twist people miss, the one that flips the story. Sienna didn't just lose a crown. She lost a mirror that let her believe cruelty was a kind of power. I didn't climb a ladder, I changed addresses inside myself. Ladders only move you to a different floor in the same building. A new address makes you a neighbor to your own dignity. You know what I mean. The days after weren't a montage where everyone applauds. Some people whispered that I sang my way into money, like it was a hack. Some said Adrian wanted to be a hero, like respect is a diagnosis. We didn't argue. We made tea. He worked with the balcony doors open. I sang quietly while packing up the old rules. He listened. I listened back. When a new staff member showed up with the tight shoulder breath I recognized, I told her where the good cups were and where the bad habits lived, and that if she wanted to put on a song while ironing, she could. That's where our story lands for now, not on a headline, but in a kitchen, where music doesn't need a permission slip. Maybe that ending satisfies you. Maybe it makes you angry. Maybe both. Should bosses date employees? Should love cross a line drawn by paychecks? Is there a way to dismantle a hierarchy choice by choice with consent, with patience, with 100 small questions like, is this all right, and mean it? Tell me where you draw the line. Tell me if a voice can change a house or if houses always win. Tell me if you've ever been silenced at work and how you got your sound back. Drop your city in the comments, argue with me, agree with me, I can take it. And if this story made you feel anything, hope, discomfort, fire, hit subscribe and stick with me, because tomorrow I've got another true story about dignity showing up in a place that swore it didn't exist.